crazy trade deadline thing. I'm also going to post this over to X right now. So if it looks like I'm multitasking, it's because I am. So we're talking Cubs trade deadline and what's actually real, what's not. Join me in here, comment, let me know who you would like the most when it comes to the trade deadline. I'm going to wait a few seconds here as we let people in. Well, as people start to join in. It is a Monday. I realize people are probably at their jobs, unlike me, just sitting in my office making content about the Cubs. What a rough life. All right, let me get this thing live on Twitter as well here. We got a few people in. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me as you're joining in here, who is your number one that you want on the Cubs from the trade deadline. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm really just kind of done with the trade deadline. I just want it to be done with. I just want it to happen. I posted yesterday about the trade deadline. Let's see. We are live. Trade deadline stuff. All right. I posted about it yesterday. I got some pushback. Listen, I know that it's not a video game. I know it's not as easy as like, let's just make a trade. I know that by trading early, you give up more. I'm just done with the whole trade deadline. I feel like the deeper we get into social media as a society, the more that like just BS comes out during trade stuff. What's up, Jacob? Gore, go all in now. You only have uncertainty in the next few years. I would absolutely go in all in on Gore. Go get Kelly and Suarez. Oh, Kelly and Suarez. Merrill, Kelly, and Suarez. I gotcha. Okay, I like that. Thank you, Michael Lorenz. We got 20 people here on a Monday. That's cool. So just a few updates here as I want to talk about the trade deadline. I want to give you some of my thoughts as well. I want to hear your thoughts mainly. That's why I'm going live. But I also want to let you know we are going to do a live trade deadline show. Myself, Alex, and our producer, Brian, who we don't see very often on camera, but he's going to jump in and he's going to produce for us. 4 p.m. Central. That's right, going into the final hour of the trade deadline on Thursday, July 31st. We will be going live just kind of as a second screen hangout. We want you guys to react with us. We want you to let us know what you think about these trades that are going on. If the Cubs have made trades, we're going to do some breakdowns on that. But if they haven't, we're going to probably complain a lot. But let me go ahead and get you some updates. And what's up, Matt Scarpelli? What's up, Chad Inc.? I agree, social media, as much as it has been a blessing, it's also cursed because there's a lot of made-up stories. Did you see what Alex Cora said today? That was pretty interesting. He said when he worked at ESPN, by the way, we got 52 people in here and only 1 like, so please press that like button. He said when he worked at ESPN, there were literally people in the back room, the green room, that were making up trades just so they could have something to talk about on ESPN. That's the backhand slap by Alex Cora to his former employers. All right. Cubs, we're talking about 4 things. We're talking about mainly Emmanuel Clase. Holy crap, we're going to start with that. Then we're going to go to Edward Cabrera. We're going to go to Eugenio Suarez. And we're going to go to McKenzie Gore. We'll talk about a few others like the Mitch Kellers of the world as well. 50 people in here, 7 likes. Every single one of you press like, please. That would be appreciated. All right, if you missed it, this is wild. You're starting to wonder what's going on in Cleveland because Jeff Passan, breaking as of 2 hours ago, Cleveland Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase, who was a top trade target for the Cubs, has been placed on non-disciplinary paid leave as part of MLB's sports betting investigation. Sources tell ESPN Clase is the second Guardian pitcher on leave tied to the investigation, joining right-hander Luis Ortiz. If you don't know about the Luis Ortiz thing, essentially there were 2 pitches in a game that Luis Ortiz there was a wild number of bets put on those 2 pitches that they would be balls. And if you watch those 2 pitches, they were uncompetitive pitches. One was in the dirt and one was, I can't remember what happened to the other one. But essentially, 2 big bets put on those pitches, and then he throws them uncompetitively. Essentially, kind of pointing to the fact that he did it on purpose so that he could win some money. Apparently, the same thing going on with Emmanuel Clase. And I guess it comes down to, because you see a few of these posts, if you just go and look up on X right now, Emmanuel Clase. You'll see stuff from like this guy, Ahan Runtka. Sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Emmanuel Clase has thrown 22 pitches this season with a 0-0 count with the bases empty outside of the game day strike zone. Of those, I've classified 11 of them as uncompetitive. So it sounds like maybe there's some sort of bet here that on 0-0 counts, and there's a few others that kind of lead into foolish baseball. Talked about the first pitch of an entire outing in the ninth inning being uncompetitive, and how there's a bunch of them that are uncompetitive. It sounds like that's what he probably, if he actually was betting or whoever had a jump on it, that's what they were betting on. So Emmanuel Clase, who was potentially the Aroldis Chapman, the 2016 Aroldis Chapman version of the Cubs here in 2025, is no longer. 88 people in here, only 13 likes. Hit that like button. Let's talk some trade deadline update stuff here with the Cubs on this Monday, 3 days away from the trade deadline. So that's crazy, but also at the same time, I mean, I'm not relieved that the dude was betting on baseball, but I'm kind of relieved that they're not going to get distracted by Emmanuel Clase, because that's not the need. The need is starting pitching, and that leads me into the next thing. So, by the way, let me know what your thoughts were. Trouble with getting Gore. So everyone's talking about Gore. We're going to talk about Gore here in a second. Is anyone just like, what is going on? Like, how do you bet on baseball? You're told again and again and again. And Emmanuel Clase, like, he's making money. Like, why? Why are you doing this to yourself, guys? Luis Ortiz was having a good season. Why do you do this to yourself? You literally, it's like you have a photographic memory. It's kind of how I equate it to. Did you ever watch Suits? It's like you have a photographic memory and you go and you cheat for other people on the test rather than just taking it and getting a perfect score yourself and getting into law school. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? You have such a blessing and an advantage, and you're going and you're throwing it down the drain. Like, this could get them banned from baseball. All right, anyway. A lot of people having conversations. Yeah, Pete Rose didn't teach y'all anything, says Matt. There's nothing left to do in Cleveland, says Jacob. That's a good point, Jacob. All right. Now, starting pitching. Let's go over to Edward Cabrera. Fish on first, as of 6 hours ago on X, says the Marlins are holding out on a package that would include two of the top Cubs prospects, Owen Casey and Jackson Wiggins, in a potential Edward Cabrera deal, Northside Baseball reports. There was another one that I saw earlier, and I can't find it right now, but it was basically that the Cubs have come to a standstill, and it's probably because of that. If you want two of the Cubs' top prospects, their number one hitting prospect and their number one pitching prospect, I believe is where they are both ranked, you're higher than a kite. Edward Cabrera is good, but I mean, he's not Sandy Alcantara prime. Sandy Alcantara prime would actually probably need Matt Shaw thrown in there as well for it to be worth it. But, I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? Like, that's the problem with this seller's market is there's these lukewarm options out there and tons of teams that are buying. And for that reason, it's making a guy like Edward Cabrera get the asking price of a Justin Verlander from 5 years ago, 6 years ago. That's just not smart. I'm glad that this is at a standstill, because if that's what they're actually wanting, I was talking with our crew earlier today via text too, and I'm just curious why, like, if you remember the Luzardo, Jesus Luzardo, over the offseason, Jesus Luzardo was the Cubs' prime trade target for a starting pitcher, and it didn't happen because they were asking for too much from the Cubs. And then they end up giving that same Jesus Luzardo to the Phillies, and don't quote me on this because I don't know the Phillies farm system nearly as well as I know the Cubs, obviously, but it was something in the effect of, like, it felt more like James Triantos and Brandon Birdsell was kind of how it was explained to me, and I'm like, but the Phillies are in your division. Why did you give them such a friendly deal while you were asking for Owen Casey from the Cubs? I don't know. I feel like the Marlins just have a bone to pick with the Cubs for some reason, because they're just asking for way too much. Way too much. What do you guys think? Is that way too much? I think that's way too much. Let's see. Just pivot to Kelly. Yeah, so Matt says just pivot to Kelly. They are absolutely high if they want all those prospects. Only Gore or Ryan for top Cubs prospects, says Anthony. Agree. If Marlins are asking for that much, might as well get Gore. He's better. Yes, absolutely. Chasing dreams. Need Willie Castillo or Castro, says John Kisner. All right, we'll talk about third baseman in a second. Also not Matt's dad. Not sure what you're talking about there, Trent. I was told Luzardo's deal was nixed because of medical concerns. Yes, they were, Terry, but again, it was because the Marlins were asking for too much. You can have medical concerns. I mean, the Cubs traded for Pete Crow Armstrong. He had medical concerns. You can have medical concerns. You just need to ask for a reasonable return. Owen Casey plus medical returns is not reasonable. Owen Casey for Edward Cabrera straight up, I think that's reasonable. I would do it. Edward Cabrera is on the up and up. He's got ace stuff, just needs to put it all together to have that ace type of year. He's always done well against the Cubs. I believe always done well at Wrigley Field. So he's the kind of guy that without medical concerns, yeah, go for it. But not Edward Cabrera, for not Owen Casey plus Jackson Wiggins. No. Okay, next one up on there was McKenzie Gore. This is the one that everyone wants, right? So we talked about Clase, we talked about Edward Cabrera, we're going to talk about McKenzie Gore, and then we're going to talk about Eugenio Suarez, sorry. According to Stars and Strikes, not Stripes, Jesse Rogers says the Nationals are rumored to want Matt Shaw as a key part in a McKenzie Gore deal with the Cubs. With Brady House at third base, Shaw would presumably play second base for the Nationals. Makes you wonder if we'll see Luis Garcia, second base version, trade this week. That, according to Jesse Rogers, is also not on the table. Matt Shaw is not on the table. You can say what you want about that. You could say, hey, go get Eugenio Suarez, and then trade Matt Shaw and get both. Yeah, but you wouldn't have Eugenio Suarez for multiple years. I believe that he is 100% a rental, as we've all been kind of talking about. So that's where you just start getting into. I know a lot of us just want to go all in. The problem is the Cubs aren't one piece away like 2016 from a World Series. They just needed a legit back of the bullpen arm because they had the hitting, they had the defense, they had the starting pitching, they had the bullpen. They just were missing one bullpen arm. That's not the 2025 Cubs. The 2025 Cubs are missing legitimate third baseman in terms of throughout the entire season. Ian Happ has been struggling, so you need to make up for his bat. The bullpen has had its ups and downs. The starting pitching is not strong. There's lots of holes here. So if you start saying win now, and then you give away Matt Shaw, you give away Owen Casey, you give away Jackson Wiggins, and then you don't win now, and God forbid you go 3 and out in the playoffs, 5 and out in the playoffs, whatever you end up doing, you're going to be really upset for the next few years. So I don't think Matt Shaw should be on the table unless you're getting some sort of third baseman in return for longer-term control. It's not like they have Cam Smith in the organization anymore. You're not going to put James Triantos at third base. He's not playing all that well this year. Jonathan Long, is that someone you really want to put all your chips in with? So it doesn't feel like Matt Shaw would be on the table. However, just an hour ago, that was about 4 or 5 hours ago that Stars and Strikes reported that. John Morosi an hour ago said something a little bit different. He said the Cubs' interest in McKenzie Gore outweighs concerns about the rotation becoming too left-handed alongside Boyd and Imanaga. Gore's contract is appealing, free agent after 2027. Lefties could be an advantage against potential NL opponents like LA Dodgers and Philadelphia Phillies. So it doesn't sound like John Morosi is thinking that this thing is hung up. However, Jesse Rogers and Stars and Strikes are kind of saying it might be hung up because of the Matt Shaw thing. What would you guys give up? I think Joe Ryan, everyone keeps talking about Joe Ryan. However, again, the Twins, like, they're still kind of in it. The Nationals are not. So I don't know if Joe Ryan is actually on the table. I don't know if Johan Duran is on the table. I don't know if that Jax guy is on the table. These are all names that the Cubs have talked about. I don't know if any of them are actually on the table. So, Gore, what would you give up? Let me know in the comments. A lot of talk about Gore, as I had seen. George says Joe Ryan. No Shaw for Gore, says Anthony. Our newborn son, by the way, is named Anthony. I read this morning that Suarez doesn't want to leave Arizona, so we'll talk about that here in a second. We can send DC the south side instead. Cubs need a better bench too. Yes, they do. I mean, that's the thing too. You go get Eugenio Suarez and Matt Shaw goes to the bench, who, by the way, has 2 pinch hit home runs this year. That looks pretty good. No to Matt Shaw, says progressively independent. They have to include House then in a Shaw deal, says Anthony. Interesting. I don't like Jack, says Anthony. Do not trade Matt Shaw, says Omar. Love to trade Justin Turner for a superstar, says Mark. Yeah, wouldn't we all? Here's my leftovers for your gourmet meal. All right, now moving over to Eugenio Suarez. As of 6 hours ago, John Heyman says, on the Cubs' chances to acquire Eugenio Suarez at the trade deadline. By the way, this was actually by 670 The Score, and John Heyman had reported this on 670 The Score. The Cubs have as good of a chance as anyone, and he fits them perfectly. I would not be shocked if he is a Cub. So there you go. John Heyman. However, John Heyman, I'm not going to lie, I turned off his notifications a while ago. He speculates a lot. I only have notifications put on for people that are actually reporting real news. And no offense, John Heyman, a lot of speculation going on. So for that reason, I'm just not into it. Then the Tigers also believe that they're in it. The Reds believe they're in it. The Brewers believe they're in it. I mean, who's not in on Eugenio Suarez at this point? So, you got these mock trades. I'll just go ahead and talk about this one really quick. Sleeper Cubs says Cubs get third baseman Eugenio Suarez. Diamondbacks get Ben Brown, Ryan Gallagher, the Cubs' number 8 prospect, and Jonathan Long. Would you do it? I think that's too much. I mean, it's a rental, guys. It's a rental. You get him for 50 games and the playoffs when you make it there. Do you really, when you're this far away from being like a clear cut, this is the team to beat in the playoffs, do you really give up Ben Brown, who I know we all have been hating on this year, but you have to admit Ben Brown has major upside. If he can figure out location, he becomes a top-of-the-end rotation kind of guy. I'm not saying he's an ace, but definitely a number 2 or 3. Ryan Gallagher, don't know much about him. Jonathan Long, I mean, with the holes at third base and first base in terms of depth, I just don't think I want to part with him right now unless you're actually going to get something of high value for longer term. I just don't know if I feel good about that. What do you guys think? Get rid of Ben Brown, says Jackson. Way too much for Suarez, says Jake Tendo. Let's see. Gallagher is a stud. Alcantara for Keller. Yeah, I mean, if you can go get Mitch Keller for Alcantara, you do it every day of the week. Alcantara has not proven that he's going to be a consistent Major League Baseball player. Mitch Keller, you immediately, is he going to take you to the promised land? No. But is he going to be a much better option as your number 3 starter in the playoffs than Jameson Taillon or potentially Cade Horton just because of the fact of the innings limit? I think 100%. I feel a lot better than that, about him than that. I would like to find somewhere in the middle of like, can we get Boyd is great. He's potentially going to have Cy Young votes this year. Imanaga, with that velocity being down, I felt like most of the season that he's gone out there and he's grinded and he's gotten results, but he hasn't looked like an ace like he did last year. Can we find something in the middle there? Like, would you put Mitch Keller in the middle of Boyd and Shota? And this is only if they don't get an ace, is what I'm saying. If you don't get McKenzie Gore or Joe Ryan, then can we get that Edward Cabrera, who has that ceiling of an ace, but just hasn't quite figured it out yet, and is definitely, like, in terms of this year's production, I say that, but even though you look at the numbers, and he actually does have worse numbers than Shota, but again, I'm just going based off of a feel right now with Shota because he just hasn't been as dominant. But I don't know. Can we find that kind of player? And that is where I kind of want to end this. Is I do feel like a lot of this stuff is just, this is what everyone, the hot topics of what they want to talk about. But Jed, like, we didn't know about the Kyle Tucker potential trade until like 24, 48 hours before it actually ended up happening. These ones that kind of tend to draw out and get extended out, I almost feel like they more often don't happen than they do happen. And then it's those ones that it's like, hey, it's a rumor. And then 24 hours later, it's like, this thing is about to happen. That's the stuff that's more likely to happen. So I just feel like once we get to Thursday, there's going to be some sort of deal that none of us saw happening. There was nothing in the trade rumors. There was nothing about this guy being even available. Think about the Morel and Paredes trade. No one was talking about the Cubs trading Morel. No one was talking about the Rays trading Paredes. And it just happened like in the blink of an eye. I feel like that's what Jed does, is he keeps things under wraps. And before you know it, you've got a trade that's very intriguing. I also think that he's going to lean towards, we talked about it by we, I mean, Alex and Ty talked about it yesterday on the show. If you missed that show, it was a great one. These guys that are kind of past their prime, but are having a unusually bad season that you think you can probably assume that they would do better if they came over to a contender. Why can't I think of his name right now? Iglesias, the closer for the Braves, not having a good year, would probably be a good fit. Alex and Ty talked about one other. Those are, unfortunately, like those are the kind of trades that I think Jed is going to be comfortable with making because of two things. Once again, it's a seller's market, and teams are just asking for too much. And number two, it's like, again, I've said it 4 or 5 times now, the Cubs are not one move away from being a World Series contending team. And you might say otherwise because you'll be like, well, they have the best record in baseball. Yeah, or second best record in baseball to the Blue Jays. Yeah, but let's be honest for a second here. Outside of that 16-5 run in those 21 games, has this felt like the best team in baseball? I got to say the answer is no. They've been a really, really good team. It's been a really fun season. I'm enjoying the ride for the most part, if it wasn't for those damn Brewers. But I will say that in 2016, we knew that team was like, if they didn't win a World Series, or if they didn't make it to the World Series, it was going to be a bust of a year. I don't feel that way. Do you feel that way about this team here in 2025? I feel like a good run to the NLCS would be like, yeah, that was a fun season. I want to win a World Series. I want to make it to the World Series. I just don't think it's the same expectations as 2016 is what I'm saying. I've missed out on some of the comments. Let's go ahead and end with some of these comments here, and then we will say adios. Lugo, yeah, Seth Lugo, I mean, he's got an extension, so that's not going to happen. How about Adrian Hauser, says Anthony? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be that expensive, too. Although the White Sox are in rebuild mode, so who knows? Let's see. Cubs are also looking for Paul Skeens, says Jackson. Yeah, who isn't? Interesting on the timing, concerning about Clase, the gambling probe, says Jay. Can't wait till the trade deadline is over. Rob, amen. Paddock to the Tigers from Twins. Did that really happen? Interesting. Rizel Iglesias. Thank you. I just could not think of the first name. Let's see. I would love Sir Anthony Dominguez. Yeah, that's been with the Orioles. That's been in the trade talks as well. I would absolutely love that. Luriano for the bench, too. That would be a much better bench bat than what we currently have. The waiting just sucks, says Thomas. Yeah, absolutely does. We need to make the right deal for this team. Patience, my Cubbies. Yeah. Patience, what's that? Name an MLB player for an edit. Okay, no. Agree the Dodgers will go all the way. Will they, though, Mark? Will they? I think the Dodgers are a very blah team with all of their starters missing. I know Blake Snell is on the mend. Let's see here. Cubs possible move. Could the Cubs possibly move in on Luis Robert, and if so, what would the White Sox ask for? I think the White Sox, at this point, if they move him right now, I don't know. I don't think you move him because he's just so bad. His stock is so low right now. I think they're just really hoping that he'll eventually one day turn it back on. Cubs need to fix the bullpen, says Omar. Yeah, it's just, I just don't think it's the number one thing right now. Like you have Thielbar, you have Keller, you have Palencia at the end, I feel really good about those three. Brazier gave up the 3-run homer the other day. Outside of that, he's been really good this year. Flexen and Pomeranz are now showing that they are human. But I mean, as long as you have that like 7, 8, 9 feeling really good, I think that makes you, especially with the way that the starters are looking, that makes it a very secondary, maybe even third type of priority. How do you feel about the Cubs and Brewers series darkiness? I feel like I will be very happy if the Cubs win one. They've got to face Mizorowski. Oh gosh, what's his name? I can't even think of his name. Someone's gonna post it in the comments. And then Freddie Peralta. I mean, Peralta is always a guaranteed win against the Cubs. He just knows how to dominate this team. Mizorowski, I'm not excited for. Why can't I think of that guy's name? Gosh dang it. Someone posted. Quinn Priester, thank you. Man, I'm on a brain fart mode. This is what it's, by the way, this is what it's like to have a newborn and be on month number 3 of 5 hours of sleep per night for 3 months in a row, just so you know. Brain doesn't quite work. Yeah, so I would like to win one of those games. And then the series of 5, Cubs need to win 3 of 5. That's how it needs to go. That's going to be crazy. That's going to be a crazy series. Tonight is going to be an awesome game, says Mars Tech. We crushed Priester last time we faced him. Yeah, but Priester has been looking really, really good. So for that reason, I think you're going to see a different version. Thank you for joining me here Monday afternoon. Trade deadline update. We'll see you again. We have a live show on Thursday. Join us, 4 p.m. Central, the final hour of the trade deadline, where myself, Alex, and Brian are going to go live. We're going to just react to everything that's been going on. Join us here on YouTube. We will see you then. Thank you so much.